The child approached the tomb and said, "Mom, get up, you've had enough rest." The boy asked his mother to get up and go to school to defend him from the teacher, but the woman did not listen to him. Her cries were useless, and when it was discovered why she was acting that way, the teacher who humiliated him regretted her mistake. The woman was tired of sending notes to the mother of the family, so, dominated by anger and desperation, she grabbed the boy by the ear and threatened him, telling him that if he did not arrive the next day well-groomed and accompanied by his mother, she would throw him out on the street.
Also, if you have not done so already, please subscribe to our channel and click that notification bell to get inspired by these real-life stories every day. Now, back to the story.
Davidcito was crying because his schoolmates were making fun of him. "He's dirty!" shouted all the classmates in unison, while the others were laughed because their shoes were broken. The boy was only 7 years old when he began to be the victim of all kinds of humiliation. He tried to wash his clothes, but there was no soap or detergent at home, much less water. In order to enjoy the vital liquid, he would wait for the neighbors to go to sleep to fill buckets in the garden faucets. He was the son of a woman named Aurora, who was left alone when she was only 16 years old, and only with the clothes she was wearing, she set out on the road to the city. She went on foot, but exhaustion overcame her to such an extent that she fell to the ground totally unconscious and fainted. When she awoke, she was in a hospital in the city because she hadn't eaten for several days, and a lady who was walking along the road took pity on seeing her lying there. The lady was wealthy, and when she spoke with the young woman, she was very moved by her sad story and offered her a job in her house and that she would provide her with financing for a small home she had on the outskirts of the city. Doña Leonor, as the kind lady was called, felt sorry for the young woman because she also remembered when she had been poor and had to struggle a lot to become a millionaire and reach the social status in which she found herself. Once Aurora started working, Leonor knew that she had made the best decision because the girl was very tidy and cooked delicious food, typical of the coast of the country. Only Leonor and her husband lived in that house since Andres, her only son, was studying abroad. During the year, everything seemed to be going wonderfully, and the young woman was responsibly putting out the little house that the lady had sold her. Every month she gave half of her salary to her boss and saved her savings, because in that house she was offered a roof and food, so she didn't have many expenses. 2 years after Aurora's arrival at the house of Mrs. Leonor, the son of the owner of the house returned and was brutally impressed by Aurora's beauty, and this really shocked him. However, he had no good intentions. He only wanted her for fun because he was too conceited to take a serious look at such a humble girl. Besides, he was engaged to the daughter of the foreign minister. Andres began to treat her too kindly. He secretly went out into the garden every evening to flirt with Aurora, who was 7 years his junior. For her, it was like a dream and she felt on cloud 9, and the man insisted so much on wanting intimacy with her that the young girl, in love, agreed. A couple of months later, she was pregnant while he was simply preparing for his wedding. The young woman confessed to Doña Leonor what happened, and she was willing to support her but made it clear her son would marry his fiancée and not her. However, that night the boy entered Aurora's room, forced her to escape with her things, and took her to the house she'd bought with her salary from her employer. He also demanded that she put the real estate up for sale and leave, because otherwise he would get the minister's security men to take care of her. Aurora immediately sold the house to her neighbors, and with the money she left for another town. Doña Leonor searched for her but was never able to find her. 4 months into her pregnancy, poor Aurora set up a small traveling food business and was doing okay. The house she bought was small but sufficient for her and the child on the way. Alone, she went to the hospital and returned home after a complicated delivery, but she was happy because her baby was healthy. David was growing rapidly, accompanied by Melissa, the young girl who took care of him. And when the boy was already a year old, Aurora began to take him to her food stand so the girl would help her in the business. So Melissa's boyfriend, who worked in a local bank, came to her business and advised Aurora to open a savings account for her son's future, which she thought was a great idea. So she entrusted him with some money she had saved under her bed mattress. The following year, when Davidcito was about 4 years old, he started attending a private school that was somewhat expensive. But for his mother, it was a relief because she made an effort for him to receive the best education possible. And also her business was really prospering, and Melissa's boyfriend became its administrator. Juliana, David's best friend, suffered a lot because her mother said that this child should not study in that school simply because he had no social standing. But the owner of the business was a woman of noble sentiments, and when she learned that Aurora was a single mother and that she worked hard to educate her son, she decided to give him a scholarship. She began to save more in the bank, but months later she fell ill. She had no strength to get up, was very weak, and Melissa moved in to live with her to take care of her and the child. She was in charge of opening the business and taking Davidcito to school. The doctors found no illness in the woman, who was writhing in abdominal pain while her son cried as he watched her suffer. Melissa's boyfriend made her sign a power of attorney, and her faithful worker was authorized to dispose of the money she had in the bank. They put new workers in the business, and 3 weeks later, Aurora passed away without apparent cause. Melissa told Davidcito that his mother was asleep and that they were going to leave her in a place where she would rest forever. The same day she was buried, and the boy cried a lot, but his caregiver and her boyfriend told him not to be sad because she was just sleeping. A week later, Davidcito woke up and Melissa was not at home. The woman had left and taken almost everything in the house with her, and the only thing she left intact was the boy's room, and he survived on a little food that was in the refrigerator. He had no one to take him to school, and so he began to arrive late, and the teacher scolded him frequently. Then she began to notice that he smelled bad and sent a note to his mother asking her to clean him up. Davidcito continued to maintain good grades but was still distracted, so the teacher put him in front of the class and in front of everyone made him see that he was a dirty child, that he didn't make an effort to take care of his personal appearance. But she didn't know that his water and electricity had been cut off at home because he simply couldn't pay. So he would fill a bucket of water in the neighbor's garden and go from dump to dump looking for something to eat. The teacher sent complaints and memos periodically, but Aurora never responded, a situation that got on the teacher's nerves, and she yelled, "Hey you! Your mother doesn't love you. She doesn't care that you walk around in rags with broken shoes and dirty clothes, and that's why she doesn't even respond." Juliana would ask her friend, worried about the reason for everything that was happening, and he wouldn't tell her anything about his situation. However, when the week of the school fair arrived, the boy couldn't present his project because unfortunately, he didn't have the money to get the material they needed. "Besides being untidy, you're useless. You don't even care about your work. But I assure you this'll cost you dearly. I can't go on with a mediocre and dirty student in my class," said the cruel woman. She then grabbed him by the ear and took him to the hallway and then threw him a notebook as a note that read, "If you don't show up tomorrow, please don't send your son again. Mothers who cannot vouch for a child should not bring him into the world." And the other children were laughing as they saw David lying in the hallway and just watched as he got up and left. David ran out to the cemetery in despair and started screaming at his mother's grave. Mom, get up now. You've rested too much and it's time for you to get up, talk to the teacher and explain to her that I've gotten dirty because you weren't at home." The boy's screams and cries were heard by the cemetery caretaker, who called the police. The media arrived, and when the news was aired, the teacher saw the broadcast, and when she learned what had happened to her student, she cried in remorse for everything she'd said to the orphaned child. She immediately ran to the cemetery and in tears, knelt down in front of the child to ask for forgiveness. The innocent child clung to her and could not stop crying, for until that moment he understood that his mother would never leave that place again. The child was taken to another location and investigations began. The authorities arrested Melissa and her boyfriend for stealing Aurora's business and savings. In addition, they discovered that they had poisoned Aurora. Months later, the teacher received Davidcito for adoption and gave him all the love he'd been lacking since his mother's death. When Doña Leonor saw the news that had gone viral, it seemed to her that the boy was very similar to her son when he was little. She visited the professor and after a DNA test verified that it was her grandson. However, the boy was raised by his adoptive mother, and his grandmother took it upon herself to secure Davidcito's future with a very good trust fund. In the end, Davidcito was rewarded. It cost him. He cried. He suffered a lot, but everything in life was for the best. We've reached the end of the video, but before you go, tell us, what did you think of the story? If you liked it, don't forget to give us a thumbs up and share this story with your friends and family. Lastly, subscribe to the channel to keep seeing great content like this.
If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and consider sharing it with someone who may find it interesting. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.